Welcome to the Draw Shop's Get Genius podcast, where we talk to today's business influencers to pick their brain and pull out their genius. It's time to get genius.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today I have a crazy cool interview for you. I'm talking to Christos Shepherd, and he's a guy who's doing something pretty amazing with an app called Campfire. I'm going to tell you what it's all about. Even also as super cool is that he's started airlines and has helped governments and entrepreneurs in Africa to start airlines. This all happened when he was fresh out of undergrad, and he started and later sold a Greek airline. And then after that, he did a stint at JetBlue, which we'll talk about on the show. And he created or helped to launch Mint, which is America's first ever lie flat experience. That's a little bit of his background. He's had a TV show in China. He writes for The Economist. He does all kinds of crazy cool things. And he's the co-founder now of a company called Campfire. And what this is a revolutionary audio app that pays users to ask great questions to their favorite experts, celebrities, and podcasters. So, it's all about sharing. You can share stories and you can get answers to your burning questions of maybe it's Selena Gomez. I don't know. Maybe it's a famous YouTuber that you want to know something about. And you ask the question, they answer you back, audio version, and then you get paid, they get paid, and then you can either keep your money or donate a percentage or all of your money to your favorite charities. So, for example, there's, we've had the hurricanes happening. I don't know when you're listening to this, but we're recording this in September, and so we've had the hurricanes that are going on, and people are donating a lot of their money towards hurricane relief. So that is something that you could do, and it's just really, really great. And beyond what the app does, we talk about social media and how can it be used for more positive experiences. How can we turn social media into something that does social good? And he's brilliant in all of his opinions and insight, and I love speaking with him. We talk about a lot of other things as well in terms of company culture, raising money for an app. So many of us have app ideas. How do you get started? How do you market them? How do you raise money for them? And what point should you start raising money? So a lot of great things that we cover here. And he's just a great guy, and you're going to love listening to him. He's got a great British accent, which I love. And I really hope you enjoy this. So have a listen, and please review if you like the interview. Thanks. Hello, Christos, and welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Summer. I've been waiting to be on this show on Get Genius for such a long time, and now I'm finally here. Thank you so much for having me.
Finally happening. Yes, thank you. I'm really excited because you've got some really unique things that we are going to be discussing. So I love it. I'm gonna go right into it. I would love for our audience to hear, because you have such a really cool background. Kind of the brief highlighted version of what you've done and how you got to what you're doing today.
About me? Wow,
yes.
My favorite topic. I get to talk about myself. Great. Well, thanks, Summer. I don't know. I consider myself to be an entrepreneur, I think, first and foremost.
Yes.
And that journey began for me when I graduated from undergrad. I left. I was a history major, so I knew really nothing about the real world. But nevertheless, I went off and I started a small airline in Greece with the support of some terrific people that I managed to persuade to join me on that journey. And, after several years of hard work, we got that airline off the ground, which was wonderful. I ended up selling it a few years later. And after that, I went to go and help other people, governments and entrepreneurs, to start airlines of their own in different parts of sub-Saharan Africa. And that was really probably one of the most challenging times of my life. Real fun in places like Ghana, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Rwanda, etc. Great fun. I then did a quick stint at JetBlue, God, I feel like I'm in a job interview right now.
I know.
I was at JetBlue for a bit. That was kind of fun. I worked with the team there on launching the Mint product, which is America's first ever lie flat seat in domestic airspace, which was a really, really fun experience. I really enjoyed that company. Great people there, terrific culture, and a lot of lessons, I think, about building company culture that could apply to organizations right the way across this country, in fact, across the world.
Yeah.
I got an MBA at Stanford, wrote for The Economist for a little bit, which was good fun. And now I am the co-founder of Campfire, which is a mobile app for iOS that pays people to ask good questions to their favorite experts, celebrities, even podcasters. So, and that's consuming my life right now. So, yeah, that's me in a nutshell, I guess.
Well, there's so many things that we're going to talk about. I first, of course, have to ask how do you even go about starting an airline? That just seems just so like what? And how, what made you even think I'm going to start an airline?
Well, starting an airline is very, very hard.
It's hard just thinking about.
I came up with the concept because I was young and stupid, didn't really know what I was doing. I said I was a history major. I was marooned on the island of Mykonos in Greece with my really, really hot Greek girlfriend at the time. We were in undergrad together. And the winds were blowing really strongly. We couldn't get off the island, which, of course, is no real disaster when you're 21 years old and you want to spend as much time as you possibly can with your hot Greek girlfriend.
Right.
But when we did eventually leave, it was a horrible experience. We got on this massive ferry. The boat was listing from side to side. It took 5 hours to go 100 miles. People were vomiting around me everywhere. It's just horrible. And I happened to see, a couple of days later, a movie. It was a Harrison Ford movie, which had a seaplane in it. And I remember turning to my girlfriend and saying, like, why don't they have seaplanes in Greece? And that was kind of how the idea for Air Thalassa was born. So it was we had a small fleet of seaplanes that were connecting people between the different Greek islands. I would say the biggest challenge, how do you start an airline, is really overcoming the challenges that are thrown in your path by regulators, and in Greece also some of the government ministries as well got involved. And a lot of the regulations around aviation are, of course, eminently sensible. They are, predicated on passenger safety and, making sure that people have a safe and comfortable experience, etc. But, nevertheless, there's a tremendous amount of paperwork, a lot of work to do. And it was only really by surrounding myself with really smart, knowledgeable people considerably older, wiser, more experienced than I was, that we were able to get the airline off the ground. That's how that happened, I guess. It was a very instructive experience for me. Of course, it really catalyzed my belief in entrepreneurship and my faith in my own ability to actually build companies.
Yeah.
And it ultimately led me to where I am today, starting Campfire.
So let's talk about Campfire and what it is and why does it matter?
Wow. Big questions.
Yeah.
Well, Campfire, first of all, is a mobile app for iOS, and Android is coming soon. And as I said before, it's an audio-based platform where you or anybody can ask your burning questions to your favorite experts or thought leaders or celebrities, the sorts of people you can't normally reach out to. You can't pick up the phone and call them because they're too famous or they're on the other side of the world or whatever.
Right.
When you ask your burning questions, they will answer you directly with personalized audio messages. So it's just this immediate Q&A exchange. But the interesting part to me is not really about the Q&A. It's this. If you ask a really good question, meaning a question that gets other people to listen to the answer, then you get paid real money. And you can donate, if you want to, you can donate some or all of that money to whichever charity you support. So let's say, Summer, I'm your biggest fan. I can ask you a question. You'll answer me with a short audio message that's sent directly to my phone.
Okay.
But if other people, your other listeners, for example, in this case, want to eavesdrop, want to listen in on that answer that you've recorded for me, I will get paid. And so will you, of course, the person who answered, but I also get paid as the person who asked. And the reason why this is important, this simple trick almost as important, is that it incentivizes people to ask good questions. Because if I ask a good question, I'm going to get paid. And so I need to, think about interesting things to ask you. I need to make sure that you're likely to respond to me, because if I send you some hateful, trolling comment that's rude and sweary, you're not going to answer. And it also rewards me for sort of instigating high quality content over the lowbrow nonsense that you get on Twitter or some of the other social media networks that I won't mention. So that's kind of at its core what we're trying to do, is to remove some of the vacuousness, the filters and the smizing and the follow me back of social media, and replace it with some more meaningful dialogue that actually matters to people and to their lives.
Right. So how did you get out the word of Campfire? What were your marketing techniques and ways to get people interested, involved? Because what it is alone is like, that's awesome. Like, I want to be a part of it. How did you get people to see what you were doing?
Wow, it's a great question. Well, first of all, we're still in early days. So, we only went into the App Store about 2 months ago now.
Right.
So, our marketing efforts are still embryonic.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, we relied a lot on our personal networks to get the introductions that we needed to celebrities, thought leaders, and experts who might, attract interest from their own follower bases and from a wider audience. So yeah, that's kind of what we did. We just went through our personal networks, spoke to people, in Hollywood, of course, in other parts of the world. We've spoken to people from Bollywood, for example, in India, Nollywood in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Spoken to EPL, English Premier League soccer players, for example, about coming and joining the platform, in addition to, your more kind of conventional run-of-the-mill American celebrities. So we're trying to build, very much a global conversation and generate some buzz around the platform when we do so.
So what are you seeing in social media that makes it more of a negative experience for some people? And what is it that creates a more positive experience?
That's a great question. I mean, I can only really speak for myself.
Yeah.
I would say there are two things that disappoint me, not just about social media specifically, but about sort of the internet and tech in general. And the first is, I feel unhappy when I go on social media, either because people are just being outwardly rude and obnoxious, they're saying horrible things to each other, being cruel to each other, etc. Or alternatively, other people just seem to be living more fabulous lives than I am, and I feel bad in comparison. Their bodies look better than mine, like their holidays are sunnier than mine. I mean, Instagram, to be honest, is very much responsible for this, I think, because literally you are looking at the life of somebody else with a filter placed over the top. You're literally filtering somebody's life,
Yeah.
literally. And so you have this unreal view of what other people are doing. And of course, your life can never live up by comparison to the highlights of somebody else's, the highlighted, filtered version of somebody else's life. And so you end up feeling sad. That's the first thing that I think makes me feel disappointed about the way social media is today. The second thing is more about the internet more broadly. And I mentioned before, that I was in Stanford for 2 years doing an MBA. So I was in Silicon Valley. I very quickly grew fed up of the incremental innovations that come out of Silicon Valley, the incremental innovations that meet the needs of a tiny band of, to be honest, mostly white, middle-aged, rich users. I was in San Francisco the other day, and I passed a billboard that was advertising a new app that helps you to figure out where in the neighborhood your dog could go to take a shit. That was the point of the app. It's like, I don't need that app. Like I've said before, like I've been in Sierra Leone and places where people don't even have water to drink.
Right.
There was a mudslide recently, hardly covered by the American media, a mudslide in Freetown after some heavy rains that killed, I think, 800 people or something like that. And
Wow.
these are problems that the people in Silicon Valley are equipped to solve because people in Silicon Valley are rich, they are very well educated, they're very worldly, and they have access to all the technology and resources that they need to actually start addressing some of these serious global problems that affect not just the lives of people in Freetown, Sierra Leone, but also in, Flint, Michigan. But they're not addressing those problems. They're addressing these, as I say, these sort of like these pointless problems that aren't even really problems. And so I think, my feelings about the internet and about, the way that we behave and interact with each other online very much sort of follow those two things that I just said. And through Campfire, I hope that in a small way, we are able to change some of that by rewarding all of the users of Campfire financially, that we reward high quality content over the lowbrow that I mentioned before, and most importantly, that we're actually generating through the platform revenue for good causes.
Right.
Not just any old good causes, but the causes that our users specifically care about the most. Because as I said, people who earn money on the platform can donate some or all of it to whichever charity they specifically choose to support. So it could be Planned Parenthood, it could be water.org, it could be, your kid's school, whatever you want it to be.
I love that. I really do. And I appreciate that you're doing this. I agree. There's a lot of people with, with apps. Everybody has an app idea. What, in your opinion, of course, how do you really gauge whether it's going to be something that's going to have a long lifespan? And if it's something that, something like Campfire really does matter. I mean, there's substance there, and it has this, it has the potential to have this amazing, huge impact. How do you determine whether your app is going to have that, and whether it's worth investing or raising money for it?
Oh, I mean, there's no answer to that question. I mean, if I had the answer to that question, I'd be an investor. I just, I'd go and it's impossible to tell the future, particularly when it comes to consumer products like apps. It's very hard to know, if consumers are going to buy something a priori. You can't figure it out in advance. All you can do is just say to yourself, like, screw it, let's do it. We'll just give it a try and see if people enjoy the experience, if they enjoy the product. And I'm really not being disingenuous when I say that. Like, really, when we first started Campfire, like, we didn't know if people would actually use it or be interested in it. And as I say, it's still early days, but we have users who are having a terrific experience, raising money for charity, earning money for themselves. And we're starting to get some of that traction. But I couldn't have said for sure if we do that in advance.
Well, I think, what happens sometimes is people start something, they have this idea, and then they, present it to a certain amount of users. And then all of a sudden they're getting feedback of something that they really, really love about it that almost shifts your direction. Did you have that experience at all?
Oh, that happens a lot. I mean, I wouldn't say that happens so much with Campfire, but I do know that for sure. Yes, absolutely. I mean, Stanford really preaches the methodology that you're talking about. And I've actually, there's an acronym for it. I've forgotten what it is now, but the lean startup methodology, like just put a really basic, threadbare, bare bones product or service out there,
right?
See how people react. And then in response to those reactions, those customer feedbacks that you're getting, like systematically collect those customer feedbacks. And when you get them, then iterate your product, change your service, and gradually, bit by bit, iteration by iteration, you'll come up eventually with the perfect product. And the great thing about this methodology is, of course, you don't need to launch with, everything. You just start really small, start with the most basic service you've got. And, you might launch a brand of you might launch an app, for example, and you find that your customers want, they like it, but they want to use it for something other than which you originally intended. In which case, pivot, definitely.
Right.
Respond to what your customers are telling you.
What was your journey in creating Campfire? Did you first create the design and then go into development? What were the different things that you were testing out or, really putting your money into and your efforts into before going to the next step?
It's a great question. I think what did we do first? So in the first place, what we had to do was really build the app, right? I mean, we needed to have some kind of product to show to people, to demonstrate to people. And since neither I nor my co-founder have any kind of technical expertise or building apps or anything like that, we persuaded a couple of people to come in and, begin an embryonic engineering sort of department for us, as a tech department for us. They helped us to put together the actual initial product, and we worked too with a designer, absolutely fantastic designer, Luke. He's still on our team. He's absolutely amazing. And yeah, so as a small team, we managed to put together an MVP, a minimum viable product. That product we then went and tested with users, both people that we knew as well as just random people. We put together some focus groups and found out what people thought, made changes to the product in much the way that I explained before. And then once we felt comfortable that we had something that that people would actually want to use, then we went to go and raise money from external investors who chipped in for our seed round, which was terrific. That the seed round then gave us the runway, the money, frankly, that we needed to then go off and build out the product some more and make further iterations and eventually launch it publicly rather than having a beta version, which is what we had until then. Launching it publicly in the App Store, which is where it is today. And we still iterate. Like every 2 days, we have a new version of the app that comes out, slightly different,
yeah,
based on what people are saying.
Right. What advice do you have for people that are trying to raise money for an app? And is it better to raise money or to use your own?
Oh, it's always better to use your own money. I mean, if you've got money and you believe in your product, use your own money. Right. If you use your own money, you don't have to give away any equity in your company. You don't have to give away any shares of your company. But most people, to be honest, don't, unless they already have the skills to actually do a lot of the coding and the design work and the marketing themselves. It's rare to find one person who can do all 3 or 4 of those things.
Right.
Eventually, you're going to need to hire somebody else, and when you hire somebody else, you need money, and when you need money, you go to investors. So typically, you do go and find money elsewhere. The best investor you can have, of course, is friends, family, and fools. The 3 Fs. Go to your mum. Yeah. Go to your best friends, go to any idiots in the local neighborhood who are looking to burn their cash, and get something from them. But failing that, yes, absolutely, you can go to sort of external institutional investors. When you go to external or institutional investors, I can't emphasize this enough, you must remember that really what you're doing is selling a product. You're selling your company in exchange for money. And in that, it's no different to when Coca-Cola tries to sell you a can of Coke. What makes you buy a can of Coke? When you see a TV ad on TV, what makes you engage with that ad? What makes you as a private, personal individual buy a product? You need to identify what makes you purchase other people's products,
right?
Internalize that, and then figure out how to make other people buy your product, which in this case is your company. That's probably the advice that I would give. In addition to that, though, there are 3 specific things that, in my experience of raising money, both for Campfire and for my airline and for other companies, there are 3 specific things that investors always care about. Number 1, they care about mitigating people risk, or team risk, as they sometimes call it. Number 2, they care about mitigating market risk. And number 3, they care about mitigating execution risk. And I'll go through them very quickly. Basically, if you're an investor, you want to give your money to somebody, you want to make sure. I mean, hopefully you'll become Facebook, and the investor will make billions. But they want to make sure they don't lose the money that they've just invested in you, right? So the first thing they look at is the team or the people that you have on board. Do you have a great team of people with past experience of doing what they're doing for you now, who are likely to be able to deliver results in the future? If so, then you've mitigated your team risk, which is great. The investor will then look at the market risk. Well, does the market, does it look like there are customers out there who will buy the product or the service that you are devising or that you have devised? If you're selling jam, is there a big market for jam out there in the world? And how are you going to how are you going to sell jam to those people? And how are you going to compete against the other jam manufacturers who are out there? The third thing that investors always care about is execution risk, and specifically, are there any proprietary or technical things, challenges, barriers that you need to overcome in order to deliver your product or service to the market? So, for example, if you are an app, do you have the technology to be able to build that app? Now, apps are actually quite simple things behind the scenes, so the answer to that question is probably yes. But if you are, for example, putting there's a great company out there at the moment called Skybox, which is launching miniaturized satellites that can go up in space for less than a hundredth of the cost of a normal satellite that goes on the side of a rocket. But there's a lot of execution risk there because it's like, well, it's never been done before. Will it work? Like when we put one of these micro satellites up there into space, will it actually function? So those are the three things: people risk, market risk, execution risk. Those are the three things that investors really care about.
What are your thoughts on crowdfunding?
I've never done it before, but I don't even, to be honest, I don't know how it works. I know that there are platforms out there where people can do crowdfunding, and I think that's terrific. If the numbers look good and if you can raise the money without giving away too much control over your company, I think absolutely go for it.
Yeah. So I want to kind of go back to the airline experience.
Sure.
When you had mentioned, and that's why I wanted to circle back because I think it's important, your lessons in company culture when you were developing like the first ever lie flat experience, Mint, when you were developing that and your engagement with teams in the company, I'd love to hear what you learned and what you can share with us.
Sure. I think, first of all, at JetBlue, there is a lot of, which is the company I was working when I developed or helped develop the Mint product. There's a great sense of camaraderie. So you really feel like everybody's in it together. And although some people might be more senior and some people more junior, some people paid more money, some people less, etc., there's a great sense that actually we're all on the same side. We're all working towards the same common goal. Slackers are not tolerated. People who don't contribute to the wider team effort are not, they're fired, basically. They got rid of. And even people in very senior positions, I mean, you should see the office of the CEO of JetBlue. It's tiny. It was the same size. It was the same size as my office, actually, put it that way. Yeah. Everybody has the same sized offices. So you really have this sense like everybody, although, as I said, of course, some people are senior, some people are junior, you have this sort of sense of a flat hierarchy in which all hands are required to achieve a common result. And added to that, I think that JetBlue has a great sort of HR team, I suppose, a team of people who are out there committed to hiring only people who are committed to JetBlue's core values. JetBlue has a set of core values which everybody is forced to memorize and recite. It's almost like some kind of cult or something. Every Monday you got to recite the company values: fun, passion, safety, etc. So I just think that kind of institutionalization of top quality culture is what differentiates JetBlue, certainly from its other peers in the airline industry, as well as from other companies sort of else, in other sectors, in other industries. And I think, to be honest, a lot of this culture at JetBlue really does trickle down to the front line. If you're empowering people to make decisions, and you as an individual realize that while you may be a small cog in a big machine, you're nevertheless an essential part of that machine, it affects you. It affects your mood when you're on the job. It affects the way that you behave towards customers and so on and so forth. And so I think, I'm very biased, but I think that some of the finest in-flight crew members in US skies are JetBlue crew members. And they're nicer, to be honest. They're more smiley, they're friendlier, they're more accommodating than their counterparts on some of the other airlines whose names I can't even bring myself to mention because I won't blaspheme live on the air. So yeah, I would say it's just very much about building a team of people who are committed to the company's values,
right,
and empowering them to make those decisions.
So do you have partners with Campfire?
So when you say partners, do you mean people I work with?
Yes, yes, with that you founded it with.
Oh yes, absolutely. So I'm merely one of two co-founders. I have a brilliant co-founder, Nick, who actually has an even more exciting and extraordinary experience than me, in that he used to run a company in North Korea, of all places. So yeah, his stories of time in that country are absolutely fascinating. I have the privilege of working with some truly phenomenal people on this project. It's just incredible people.
And how long did it take you to get to your first, demo or alpha version of the app?
I would say it probably took a month or 2 months, something like that. I can't remember the exact dates now. It was sometime towards the end of last year, but it was a long process. It was sort of 6 months of work before we actually ended up getting into the App Store.
Yeah.
And Apple, just between you and me, like Apple, my God, does this podcast go out on Apple? They're probably going to censor this part out.
It does. But yeah, go ahead. We can edit it out.
They're not the most helpful people when it comes to they're not very responsive or very helpful with developers of apps, I would say.
Yeah.
So,
the challenge.
It's definitely a challenge. I mean, all businesses have these challenges. When I was starting the airline, the biggest challenge was dealing with 3 different Greek government ministries, as well as two of the regulators. And likewise, when you start an app, fine, you don't have any regulators, you don't have a government to deal with, but you have Apple. And to be honest, Apple now very much behaves like a government.
Yeah.
It controls everything that exists within its borders, really its ecosystem, its app store, whatever you want to call it. And it levies quite significant taxes on all the behavior that exists within its ecosystem. By the way, Google with its Play Store and Android is not really that much better. But I wish that the world, I defend the right, of course, of Apple and Google to make money in this way. I'm a capitalist, but I wish the world at large was more alive to the somewhat, again, you should check with your lawyers, maybe edit that, but the somewhat anti-competitive ways in which, in fact, it's not even, I can say that, it's a free country, right? Behavior is anti-competitive.
Yeah.
So, that concerns me for the future. I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent, but you look historically at companies like, for example, Standard Oil, the Rockefellers in the early part of the 20th century, which just literally got too big, too powerful, too monopolistic, and they ended up getting broken up by the government, very controversially. But I wonder if that might happen to Apple or to Google, because they literally, between the two of them, and okay, if you add in Facebook as well, between the 3 of them, they basically control the entire internet.
Oh, yeah.
Which is dangerous, if you ask me, extremely dangerous.
Absolutely. Definitely. One thing that I really, really love about Campfire, by the way, is the fact that people have the option they can either keep their earnings or they can donate it to their favorite charities. And I'd love to hear your experience on, I know it's still in its infancy, but so far, how many users, what percentage do you see are actually putting it towards charities rather than keeping it themselves?
I would say that, I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but I would certainly say more than half, probably about 50 to 60% of our users donate at least something to charity. You can donate anywhere from 0% of your earnings all the way up to 100% of your earnings. Some people, are donating 100%. Some people it's 50%. Some people it's 25%. But yeah, I'd say certainly a majority of our users are donating to charity. And we have a lot of pressure on us, actually, from our users to add more charities to the platform. So every time somebody wants to, for example, donate to their kid's school, I mentioned before, or to, relief of the victims of the mudslides in Freetown, Sierra Leone, like that's something else that we have to add into the app. Usually takes us a couple of days to do it. We're working flat out with a really small team. to add more charities. But yeah, we certainly have demand from more people to add more options as well.
That's so great. So, just like with the current recent hurricane disaster, you could implement that in, and within a couple of days, people could direct their money that way.
Yes, absolutely. We found that the demand, I should say, that the desire of our users to donate to hurricane relief was so strong that actually we added the ability to donate to the American Red Cross within a couple of hours. So I would say the majority of the people who are donating to charity through Campfire right now are donating to the American Red Cross in support of relief of hurricanes Harvey and Irma. And also, don't forget, too, that there was a lot of devastation caused by Irma in the Caribbean. I was actually born in Jamaica, which fortunately was not touched by Irma, but there were a lot of people, in the British Virgin Islands, in Anguilla, in St. Martin, in Cuba, a lot of these places which were hit even worse than Florida, and where of course the local infrastructure is less good than it is in Florida. And so we're making a deliberate effort to make sure that some of the donations that we raise on the app are going towards the Caribbean islanders as well.
Yes, I love that. So there's a question for you. One, actually, I'm totally going to sidetrack here. I noticed that you recently got your is it your master's or MBA at Stanford?
I did, yes. I got my master's at Stanford. Yeah.
So I'm curious because a lot of times people do that before all of their launches and journey in entrepreneurship. So what made you decide to do that?
Well, I could tell you the bullshit story, which I'll maybe save the bullshit story for my autobiography. The truth is that, which I'm not writing, by the way. I'm not writing autobiography. The truth is that I was in an organization. This is when I was working in Africa. I was working for an organization, and I realized that I had reached a sort of a glass ceiling. There was nobody above me apart from the founders of the company, and they were never going to give me equal terms. So I kind of felt like I was in a bit of a cul-de-sac and dead end. Didn't really know where to go, and business school seemed like a cool place to hang out for a couple of years. and maybe also broaden my horizons outside of the world of aviation, and so that's exactly what I did.
That's awesome. How was that experience?
Business school is truly humbling, wonderful. I mean, business schools differ, of course. Also, I'm told. I've only been to one, of course. But Stanford was just, you go in there expecting wonderful things, and your expectations are just consistently exceeded, not necessarily by the quality of the instruction or by the classes, but certainly by the quality of your peers.
Yeah.
I had some truly, truly wonderful classmates who taught me things about themselves, about me, about the world. And those experiences was just irreplaceable.
I love it. I think it's so great. What's one of the most interesting questions to you that you've heard on Campfire?
People don't ask me questions. I'm not very popular on Campfire. I used to be in the top 5 because we have a leaderboard. Nobody asks me questions anymore. Wow, gosh.
All right. What's the most? Go ahead.
No, I was going to say I can tell you my favorite question. It just wasn't asked.
I was going to say it could have been asked to anybody.
So we have a user on the platform who is the star of a really, really hugely popular YouTube comedy show.
Okay.
Called Smosh. I've never watched it, but apparently it's very funny. And she's on there, she's answering questions, and it's very funny, like just hilarious responses to questions. And one day somebody asked her a question. I'm horribly paraphrasing, but it was something like this. It was like, Courtney, I know that when you were a teenager, you suffered from depression. Now I'm a teenager and I'm suffering from depression. What advice, if any, do you have for me? And she answered it in the space of, a minute, that's the maximum length of an audio response on Campfire. And it was just so unexpected. I think that was the reason why it moved me so much. I was expecting her to be laughing and joking and being the zany personality that she is on YouTube.
Right.
But she took it very seriously. She gave what I think was some extremely valuable and meaningful advice to this guy who was very sincerely asking her. And for a minute I sat there and just listened, and I got shivers up my spine. It was a really moving and touching and personal response, and that was definitely my favorite answer that I've heard on the platform so far. But Summer, you could top it. So I'm looking forward to your answers to the questions I'm going to be asking you this afternoon.
Well, now I have a new mission. This is so cool, and I can't wait to dive in myself and use it. I think it's just when you just think of the potential and how big this can get, it's like, wow. I would imagine itself will be on YouTube.
I hope so. I mean, I'm not as funny or as beautiful as Courtney I was just talking about, but yeah, I mean, I have a face for radio, I'm told. So I'll stick with the audio.
I have one question that I was actually told to ask you, and I'm curious about your answer because I think it's a great question, and that is, how can Silicon Valley businesses materially improve people's lives worldwide?
Wow, that's a great and broad question. I mean, I mentioned before that I think there are a lot of people in Silicon Valley who have the wherewithal, the power, and the resources to, materially improve people's lives right the way around the world. I would ask them to get out of their offices, to stop considering exclusively Silicon Valley-based investments or Silicon Valley-based tech businesses, and go to Lagos, Nigeria, or go to Nairobi, Kenya, or go to Dhaka in Bangladesh, and actually meet with entrepreneurs in those countries, in those places, who actually, when you go there, you find they have amazing ideas, amazing products. For example, something that Americans just don't know is that this whole movement of mobile money, Venmo and Apple Pay and all of these things, you use your mobile phone to make payments for people,
right?
To people, was all developed in Nairobi, in Kenya. There's a company there called M-Pesa that started this all off about 10 years ago. And by the way, in Kenya, it's way more sophisticated than it is here. You wouldn't expect that because people think, it's a poor African country. Far more sophisticated than it is here. And you can do all sorts of things with mobile money. In fact, people don't really even carry cash or use credit cards in Kenya anymore because everything is just done with a swipe of the phone. You pay your bills, you pay your friends, you pay for Uber. Everything is done through your mobile phone.
Oh, wow.
And so a lot of these ideas they begin in places that you wouldn't expect. I would just heartily encourage, the people at Sequoia, the people at Andreessen Horowitz, the people at these big venture capital companies to, as I say, get down from their ivory towers and go to parts of the world where people are making a real difference, and where, in fact, the benefits of some of these innovations are considerably more profound. Now, if you introduce mobile money, sort of an Apple Pay system in America, that's cool. I mean, I don't have to get my credit card out now. I can touch my phone to the point of sale machine. Great. But if you introduce mobile money in a place like Nairobi, where nobody has bank accounts and cash is king, you now suddenly have all sorts of knock-on effects. You get rid of the cash economy. So the black market basically disappears. The government can actually collect taxes and in turn reward its public servants and pay people. You have ways for people to transact across long distances. If I want to now buy an apple or something from the other side of the country, somebody can ship that apple to me and I can pay for it electronically. Whereas previously I couldn't send cash in an envelope because it would just get stolen. So now, instead of only buying apples from my immediate, 1 mile radius of where I live, now I can buy apples anywhere in the whole country. So the prices of apples comes down. There are all of these knock-on benefits that you just don't really think of when you immediately think, oh, Apple Pay, I'm going to buy my
exactly
iPod with this touchscreen technology, So I would really encourage the people of Silicon Valley to consider all of these things and to just get out there. The world is a huge place, and it doesn't end, in San Jose in California.
Love it. Well, this has been incredible. I would love for our listeners to be able to find Campfire. What's the best way? I know there's a few different campfires on iOS, so let us know the best way to find that.
There are a few imposters.
Yes.
So, you can download Campfire in two ways. You can either go to the App Store and search for Campfire, and just look for the little orange microphone. You can't miss it.
Okay.
Or alternatively, to be really sure, just on your iPhone, go to get.campfire.fm, and that will automatically direct you to download the app. It's get.campfire.fm. And I will see you there. Of course, I will be, if anybody wants to ask me any questions, I'm, of course, on the app as Christos Shepherd. You can search me, ask me questions. I will respond. Entrepreneurship, starting airlines, Silicon Valley, getting into Stanford Business School, writing for The Economist, any of these things I'm delighted to talk about with...
Having a TV show in China.
Having a TV show in China, yes. And Summer, I will be asking you questions as well this afternoon, as I said, on the Campfire app. So people should come in and check out your answers.
Absolutely. I love it. It's going to be fun. Well, thank you so much, Christos. This was awesome. I'm so excited for you. This is going to be an incredible journey, and I'm excited to be following it.
Thank you so much, Summer. You're part of the story now. So welcome to the Campfire.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to today's Get Genius. You can learn more about The Draw Shop at www.thedrawshop.com, on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Your home for kick-butt custom whiteboard marketing videos. Your ideas come to life. Thanks for listening. Please share, comment, and make any suggestions for future genius guests.